I'm Charlotte Smith from @Charlotte's House. Welcome to my handmade home. When I first looked at this house with my agent, I didn't get that warm, fuzzy, this is your forever home feeling. There was not really anything about this house that I loved, and we kept looking, and my agent, who is also a dear friend, finally came back and she said, I think we need to just reframe this. I think you need to consider what your skill set is, and your skill set is taking not very colorful, maybe kind of plain spaces and making them fun and energetic and personal. So why don't we look at the house again and see what you can do to it. I am a full-time content creator, and what that means is that every space is always up for grabs. So when I first walked through this house, I had a real long list, and it's been sort of a fun project for me to work on both professionally and personally. For me, my job is just a series of projects that I try to share and teach to my audience on both my blog and social media. I started doing things around the house, and it was really exciting for me to show other women that they could do what they wanted in their own home. They didn't need to be limited by budget or skills, that there was really a way to tackle any project, no matter how big and no matter how small. So that's kind of been my driving force. But personally, my job gives me so much joy. I get to wake up every morning and figure out ways to make my house more fun. I get to learn new projects. So it has sort of been a win-win career choice, if you will. This is my foyer. This is the first space you see when you come in the house, and as you can tell, it's so small. So the first thing I wanted to do was just to go big. There's a lot of pattern. There's no rhyme or reason to the pattern. I probably shouldn't admit to that, but I really liked the wallpaper. I wanted something big and kind of floral. I really love the runner. Do they match? Probably not. Do I care? Definitely not. And then the rest was just trying to maximize the space. So I wanted to bring in a really fun light fixture up top. This little foyer table, this was originally just an IKEA raft dresser, so it was so simple, and it was honestly the only thing that would fit this tiny diminutive space. So I went ahead and I added this flexible trim, which I had never heard of, but I am now officially team flexible trim. I added some handles, I added some acrylic legs, and then I painted it a color that I had to kind of custom match to pull from the wallpaper. I love little spaces because you can sort of flex your muscle and anything goes. At least that's my philosophy. Let's get this on camera because this is what it's like to live with 5 children. You're welcome. I did paint the railing. I know that this is sort of a controversial decision, but there was nothing special about this railing. This was basically a builder grade railing, and so instead of having a color that I didn't love, I thought, I don't know, YOLO, do we still say that? You only live once. So I painted it to match the wallpaper. And then moving through, this is just a beautiful wall hanging that I found at the flea market. I love that it brings in a little bit of natural texture. I think artwork would have competed with the wallpaper, so this is sort of a neutral, but there's still a lot to it, which I love. And then if you walk through, this is my kitchen. We spend the most time in our kitchen, which I think is probably pretty typical of a family, and the kitchen can certainly take the most budget out of us, and we didn't have the budget. So my favorite thing in this kitchen is probably just the green cabinets. Green is having a real moment, but I also love green. I use it a lot in my house. Other things that I have done, I did go ahead and add my own backsplash. I really love these sort of green tiles. They all have a slightly different handmade feel to them. So I think that brings the green around. My kids sit around this island all the time. This counter is never this clear. Don't be thinking this is how we live, but this is really where we spend our time. So the kids will be here doing homework. I will be set up with my laptop. So this space, I would say, is a pretty successful makeover with a limited budget. The sunroom, if I'm being honest, was one of the prettiest spaces in the house when I first saw it, but I didn't love a lot of the features. And so again, my solution to camouflage some of those kind of harder things to fix was just to bring in a lot of color. So these are very basic IKEA rugs. I stacked a bunch of them so that it would fit this sort of awkward shape. So there is a lot of seating in here, which may look a little funny, but we have a lot of people, so these chairs get used. This round table I found at the Restore, and it just needed a little love. I didn't do much to it, but I did refinish it. I found some colorful chairs. If there was ever a chair that fit my personality, these would be it. I love these chairs. What else can I show you in here? I love showing my house. This is so fun. This is my dining room, and we use it. You know how a lot of dining rooms you never use? We use it because we fit in here really nicely. So this is a really fun celebratory place. This was maybe the second space that I did in this house. I fell in love with this chinoiserie wallpaper, so I installed this myself. I've gotten pretty good at wallpaper over the years, which is definitely something I can flex my muscle with. And then this is sort of a space where I'm just highlighting some of my favorite things, which is honestly a lot of how my decorating works. I find something fun and I use it. So these sconces I found at a flea market, I think they're meant to have a candle. They don't, they're just there. This is a painting I got from my grandmother. I love it. I get asked about it all the time. Obviously that needed to have a prominent spot. And then other things are flea market or thrifted. If I find something sort of quirky and funky, I'm gonna find a space for it. And it doesn't have to make any sense, but that's where it's gonna live. This is my globe collection, and it started with any collection. I'm stating the obvious with one. I think I really liked one of these from the flea market, but I didn't know what to do with it. So every time I went to the flea market, if I saw another one, I picked it up, and now I have many, many globes. And I've always thought they look really fun when they're displayed all together because one item is cheesy, but many items is a collection. We are in my living room, which is, I can't say my favorite room, but it's one of my favorite rooms just because it has so much color and things to look at, which I think we've already established is sort of how I decorate. When we had to move into this house, I sat down and I tried to get excited about some of the spaces. And this room was the first room that sort of came to me in my mind. I had this idea of doing a lot of color, big. I knew I had a big green couch that has always been just a favorite element in a room. If you have a big green couch, come on, you have to lean into it and bring in color and pattern everywhere else. And then I had this idea for doing a really fun gallery wall, and we call it My Ladies. So it's all just really colorful pictures. I've now incorporated some family portraits. So this wall is ever growing. I made this coffee table. This was my attempt at, there's sort of an anthropology version that has black and white stripes and it has that sort of waterfall line. So I thought, why not try it? And is it a lot? It is, but I love it. This rug was one of the first things I ever bought when I owned a home. This was from a local outlet, so nobody can get it again. I'm sorry to everyone who asks. And I use all the colors to just sort of inform the space. This dresser was $40. This was covered in white paint, and I bought it because I had to show the process of stripping paint. And when I stripped it, this is what I found underneath, and I just die a little bit inside when I think about the person who decided to paint over this. Here's where the internet is real salty with me. Come in close, because you'll notice I didn't bother to strip the side of it. But you know what I tell them? I don't leave the doors open, so you don't see it. How pretty is that? This is my sheep. Why do you have a sheep, Charlotte? I have no explanation. I just wanted to make one. These sort of sheeps have popped up in fancy design places, but the price tag is not for me. So I just figured out a way to make it. And this is an old rug that I had kicking around. And this sheep is one of my favorites. So here's my sheep. So this room is really the itch that I get to scratch. I can bring things in, I can do what I want in here, and for the most part, the kids stay out of it, so it stays neat, which I love. These side tables were something else that I got when my grandmother passed away. These were in her bedroom, and towards the end of her life, we spent a lot of time in her bedroom. So I love that these are here, and now every time we're in here, I think about her, and oh, I haven't opened this. This was from her. I'm being told that's very authentic. I had never saw that. It's like a little sewing thing. So apparently there's a few things from my grandmother in here. Oh my God, look at that! Okay, so now, this is now a little bit of the decor. So that's gonna live right there. And that is how you design. Okay, we're gonna go upstairs because I'm gonna show you our bedroom, my kids' bedroom, so come on up. This is our primary bedroom. And it's so big. It's so big. And I could see that for a lot of folks, you would think, oh my gosh, a giant cavernous bedroom, that's great. For me, it just felt too big. Like, what am I doing with all this space? So my biggest challenge for this space was how could I furnish it to kind of close it in a little and make it feel a little bit more intimate. We have a king-size bed, so that helps. But I think the biggest thing that I did in here was actually creating this, I put it in quotes, this built-in. So this started as 2 pieces that I found at the Restore, but they were dated. They had sort of glass doors, and I didn't love the front. So I added sort of a shaker molding to the front. I painted it to match the wall color. I put a desk in the middle, and it is not obviously a built-in, but it does fill the space. It gives us some storage, and I think it solves the problem of creating a little less space in here. And then if we move along over here, this little chaise lounge, you can look that up. I don't know how you pronounce it. I got this on Facebook Marketplace, and this is the original. I didn't do anything to it. I made this cute diptych to go over it. I got the prints just like this, and then I created the frames. We're gonna talk about the rugs because in big spaces, finding a rug that is gonna fit is sometimes a big issue, and it can be a big price point. These are 2 very budget-friendly rugs that I think I got just at a big box store, and I just have 2 side by side. I made sure that I picked a pattern that would sort of flow together nicely. Obviously, you can see the seam, but it's not the first thing you see when you walk in the room. And then I just layered some smaller throw rugs. This might all get rearranged, but for now, it just helps anchor this other layout. So this giant room now has a few sort of areas. There's a sleeping area, and the area we're gonna pretend to work at, and the area we're gonna pretend to read at. And it just helps to shrink the space a little bit, which was my goal. With 5 kids, we only have 4 bedrooms, so 2 children are sharing, much to their chagrin. So the first bedroom that I really tackled was the shared bedroom, and that's the one where I built a beautiful bunk bed, and I wallpapered, and I tried to listen to what my kids wanted. And then I just finished a bedroom that is sort of shared, but it's sort of this funny hybrid. My oldest daughter is now away for high school at a boarding school, so she doesn't stay here all the time. So my middle daughter is taking the opportunity to move right on in. So what did we do in here? Kind of everything. The girls both agreed that the bed worked best here, which would not be my choice, but it's not my room. And then they wanted a couch, they wanted a desk, and just figuring that out was easier said than done. So we painted everything. And when we say we, you guys know I mean me, right? Okay. I recovered a headboard that I had already made. I recovered that with sort of a neutral rose pink. So that rose is kind of the accent color. And then I brought in bedding that both girls agreed upon. Again, that is a miracle of miracles. This is a painting that my great-grandmother painted. My daughter noticed that the windows looked kind of naked. She said, I love curtains or something, but because there's furniture in front of all the windows, curtains weren't the best choice. And so this was a way of bringing a little bit of interest to the windows without going crazy. So I was able to build this out of inexpensive, I don't know, 1/2-inch plywood. Some people even use foam core, so it can be really budget. And then I upholstered it. I glued this ribbon on just to bring in the pink. And I think this is a really fun detail that successfully added a little bit of interest to the windows without overpowering the space and making me crazy because it was too much work. A lot of the stuff for the house that I make happens in my office, so let's go look at that. This used to be the dreariest concrete space. This back wall was just these shabby built-ins, and now this is kind of the colorful, crafty space of my dreams. But a couple things that we did in here. I had a professional group of drywallers come and frame and drywall. I am handy, I am not that handy. So once that was set, I came in and I was able to spray all the walls, I framed out the windows, I painted the floor. If you can't paint a floor in your office a bright, colorful blue, I don't know where you can. So that was a really fun start. And then behind me, I obviously wanted to have just a whole wall to store everything from photo styling props, which is basically a code word for stuff that I bought and I don't want to get rid of. I bought budget-friendly base cabinets, and then I put budget-friendly butcher block on top. I built these shelves. Did I do it right? Not quite. There's a few places that weren't perfect, but this was my first attempt at shelves. And so this is one of those times when I tell people, you gotta just try it, you're gonna learn. Next time I built shelves, they're gonna be better. And these look fine, and for my office, they're great. My sort of unofficial tagline is just try it, because from every mistake, you learn something new. And if you think that anyone is learning anything without making mistakes, you're crazy. That's just not how it works. So I don't share all my mistakes, but I do try to share the ones that have informed my learning, because that's just part of it. I don't turn this on nearly enough because pink neon is completely underrated. It's super fun, but that's where it lives. For me, being an influencer is not about, sharing my outfits or sharing my makeup. It's more about encouraging and cheering people on to sort of think that first question of, can I do this? Because for me, that's where it all started. It was a toilet that I broke trying to change the toilet seat, and I thought, heck, I have to call a plumber either way. So is this something I can do? And I think that philosophy has sort of been present on my social media, on my website ever since. And I think there's a lot of women, particularly my age, who wasn't sort of on their radar that women or homeowners could do these things. And so I want the first question to always be, could I do this on my own? And, I'm here to say, yeah, you can.
Hi, I'm Janelle Payne, and this is my renovation story. Come on in. I live in between San Francisco and LA in a little town called Nipomo, California. We are in a space that's rural enough to make you feel kind of like you're in the country, but yet we're close to like San Luis Obispo. We kind of have it all here. My Instagram account is all DIY. I'm Nail Gun Nelly, and it's turned into so much more than I ever would have thought. Me and my husband are very frugal, and that's why I started DIY, because if you can do something for a little cheaper, I don't know why you wouldn't take that route. It's much more satisfying too. I love walking into a space and being like, I made that. Off the front door, you immediately come into the family room. And prior to us renovating it, it's just like you hit a wall. It was brown. The walls were all brown. The flooring was like a cherry wood. Even like the chandeliers had wood on them. Dark, dated, ugly. And there was an actual wall that covered this entire section. So I was like, wall's gotta go. And it just brought so much light in here. I love how it feels. It's much more open, inviting. It really made like all the difference. And then painting the walls with a cream color, changing the red floors out, it's worked out really well for us. I just wanted to get a light color all throughout. I love neutrals, natural elements. I love the use of greenery and plants. I love the stone. I love even like a cement texture, wood tones. We live in a rural area, so I want it more of a modern farmhouse, just homey, natural, modern, and bright. A happy space. We just did this feature wall. One-day project. I busted this whole entire wall out, made some floating shelves, added some sconces, and you have yourself a feature wall. But it's super simple DIY that made such a huge impact. I love this space. We've always had this potbelly stove. The brick was just the normal red brick, just whitewashed it. Take a paintbrush, watered down some gray paint, wipe it on, wipe it off. I wanted some of the character of the brick to shine through, so that's why I chose to do this rather than just paint it. This is such a simple, high impact DIY. Anybody could do it. I could have my toddler do it. And with these floors, it brought out a lot of the gray that's in them as well. And then to make that mantle, I took some pine boards, glued them together, drilled into the top of the brick, capped it, stained it, and created a mantle. It was a super simple DIY that I was able to do with a 6-month in my hand, and it provides little seating. It just livens up the space, brings life to it. It gives you like more of a homey vibe. So from the living into our office space, I created these arched openings that kind of just welcome you into the space. I wanted to make sure that we could make it kind of flow out into the backyard. Once again, making it feel just like kind of open, one with outdoors. Part of that is when we were renovating the deck, we found all of this wood rot and damage. And we found out that at the front of the office, there was wood rot there too. So it kind of led us into having to redo a lot of the office. And so it was a massive undertaking because we had to rip that entire back wall out and redo the supports of the back of our house. I love being able to look out in this space. Once that was fixed, it was kind of a, well, I guess now here we are, let's do the office. So I put in a brand new slider. This back wall, we actually exposed the back side and created an open flue, and it gave so much character to that room. I wanted something that was gonna be subtle, but make the flue stand out. So I actually just took drywall compound and I just went like this all across the wall and trimmed it out with some 1x2s. Super cheap, high impact, and it's such a unique wall. The other thing I did was I built this desk. I wanted a modern, simple wood desk, and I could not find one for the right size. So of course, I built it. These bookcases, I also built myself. How cool is that? I also added faux beams and made those, which is, again, pretty simple DIY, and it makes a huge difference. Just these little things that made this space special. I love it. In this area, I wanted to keep the table small, and I came across this company called Transformer Table. And so I can open this into like 10-foot table. And then this bench opens up. So it's really cool because I can maximize the space, but can even be smaller than this for when it's just us 4 here. This is our quote of the month. Be the person you are in church. Come on, man. Just be the person you are in church. It's such great advice. I love this space. Right off the dining room into the kitchen. Your kitchen is like the heart of the home, as cliche as that may sound, it is so true. It just needed to not be so dated. The kitchen cabinets are all original. The only thing we did was painted them. We didn't have our 2 small boys at that time, but I was 8 months pregnant with my first child painting these cabinets. But it is such a high impact DIY that does not cost a lot of money. If you're willing to put in the work, you can totally change your space. We found this brick and we added it to the whole front of our peninsula just to give it a unique look. We got some granite countertops, which was probably the biggest splurge. We did do a whole backsplash. I didn't want just the normal subway, but I wanted something similar to it. So we kept it white and bright in here. We also installed a farmhouse sink. Just elevated the look of the space. I love the flow of it, how it all comes together. I love this space. This is our primary bedroom. Everything in here was brown, red floors once again. The feng shui was off. I wanted to keep it simple in there, bright, white, cozy, minimal, but functional, with hints of color and a place to just dive into bed. I wanted a platform bed, simple, kind of modern. Couldn't find one anywhere, so of course I built it. I kind of wanted it to flow with the rest of the house. So I brought in some Farmhouse by doing a shiplap headboard. I built the barn door, added a lot of character, but also was functional. Rural, but not in-your-face farmhouse. And it's, once again, a pretty simple build. From our bed area into this walk-in closet, before it was all white and there was just clothes everywhere. Just a disaster in there. I don't like clutter. I feel like if you have a cluttered space, you have a cluttered mind. It's just so much nicer to have things put away and in their spots. I built all of the shoe shelving. I built all of the hanging shelves. I mean, I did everything myself. I knew I wanted a monochromatic look in here, so everything is painted Delft blue. It is a bolder color for me, but I'm so happy that I took a risk with it because I do have touches of blues in my bedroom, but it's such a fun space to walk into. And it allowed me to have these nice little areas where I can decorate because that's what makes me happy. Just those little touches, like with the gold accents, just make it feel decorated. And who decorates their closet? Everything has its spot. Just once again, walking into a pretty space makes you feel happier. And then I created a hidden storage with a big mirror, but I still have all my hanging clothes behind that so that they're out of sight. It's come a long way. I absolutely love it. Into our primary bath. We did this when I was actually pregnant with my second child, and this was a huge project. The feng shui on that place was all off. Just a dark mess. I wanted it all open, kind of like that spa-like vibe, walk-in shower, no door, no curtain, rainfall shower. And so that's what we did, which made the biggest difference. And then I built this vanity. I really wanted a wood vanity, and they're all very expensive, the ones that I liked. So I built it. And then we just got this remnant piece of granite and cut a couple sinks out. Farmhouse, but kind of modern. I absolutely love it. It's exactly what I wanted. Having wood tones in there made it just feel so natural and relaxing. I wanted some sort of cool backsplash. So I found this tile that had the greens and the little bit of blues to incorporate from my bedroom, a little different. And then the roof is actually a very, very faint baby blue, just to give it kind of like a sky look. And we learned a lot, and I think it turned out great. And just like you were like in a little rainforest, you know? Outside was a huge undertaking as well. So let me go show you that. When we bought the house, there was a hot tub on the back deck. What we thought was just going to be a small extension to get the hot tub out of this space turned into our deck was falling apart and we had to remove the entire thing. The deck boards, we noticed that the joist hangers that were going across literally were like non-existent. I honestly have no idea how they were holding up that hot tub or even the deck at all. They were rotted out, but yeah, it was horrible and it needed help. We don't have an option. We're gonna figure this out. And we did. And then it leads right into the sitting area where we have these couches, fire pit, this whole entire space to be able to like create a vibe. I built these couches. I built the fire pit. Just creates such a nice like ambiance, more of a homey vibe outdoors. This outdoor kitchen I built from scratch to enclose all of our barbecue elements. We had all of these things and they would just take up space, so I wanted them neat and put away. We added a sink, wood storage. It's just like so special coming out here and seeing all these like amazing elements and being like, dude, I made that. And then as you move down, it leads into like a dining area. It just became like an extension of our house. Completely transformed this whole entire back area. And then we come down the stairway that brings us to the lower part of the backyard. We had to redo this entire stairway. We actually made it a normal size for somebody to fit down. We also had a different type of railing. So kind of to play on the modern farmhouse, I found this company that does cable railings. It's actually a really good DIY, and it made the biggest difference. More open, more modern, but still goes with the vibe of being in this rural space. And then you come into our small little backyard. We wanted to be able to have a space that was manicured. So we decided to section off a small portion and have that space for our kids to be able to play on the grass, have it fenced in with like a seating area, the swing set, and then created a fort for the boys. Put it up on stilts, and it just adds a cute little anchor to our backyard. They have a little chandelier inside, a couple chairs, beanbag, and then this slide is actually a bunch of ABS pipe that was on the property that I cut down and created a random pipe slide. I always try and reuse anything I can. The chicken coop I was able to make out of just scrap wood we had sitting around. Don't judge our garden boxes right now because we're in the middle of needing to redo them. And then this trellis is actually, my husband built it for our wedding. It was just pure dirt, and we've turned it into like fun little areas. We never intended on actually staying here forever, but then after getting married here, having our 2 kids, everything that we've done, we absolutely love it. We've made it our home, and I'll definitely say it took us years to get to this, but you'd be surprised how much you can accomplish if you just do little bits at a time, and then all of a sudden you're like, wow, I can't believe how far we've come. Knowledge is power. The more you learn, the easier things are gonna get, and I love everything we learned from this project.
Hi, I'm Kyle Ortiz, and this is my renovation story. Come on in. I've been DIYing for a long time, but when I moved into this house, I wanted to document that process. And so I created an Instagram page, and I started sharing all the projects that I do here at the house. Every project I did, I recorded, and everything that I shared, people liked it, and I started to grow this following. I think it combined with not having a lot of money and kind of having the necessity to make a home that fit our growing family, and then just kind of figuring out how to do it. And over the last few years, it's really kind of become my whole job. I left my normal job to do this full time. I'm all self-taught. I learned how to do pretty much everything that I've done in this house and in previous houses from YouTube. So there's this whole full circle moment where now I am teaching people online how to do projects in their homes, when I have, for the last 10 years, been learning from people online how to do projects in their homes. I'm a DIY dad and a full-time content creator. I live here with my family, my wife Amanda, and our 3 children, Jonah, Emma, and Samson. Jonah is 10, Emma is 7, and Samson is 4. I'm just like every dad. I'm trying to juggle being a husband and taking care of my kids and all the normal parts of life while I'm renovating this house 1 room at a time. This is the kitchen, and this is probably my biggest, low cost, high impact renovation that I've done. It was basically super brown. It had dark brown cabinetry, had this stacked stone backsplash. The whole house looked like Olive Garden. Lots of dark wood, lots of dark flooring. It was just like a time capsule of 2013. It looked like that year if it was personified. Not current at all. The floors were a big part of that. They were this really dark laminate that matched the espresso brown cabinets, and then dark brown walls. So I replaced all of the flooring with this really nice engineered hardwood, and I went through the entire lower level of the house, and it just has brightened up the entire space so much. When I moved into this house, I probably had done floors 3 times or 4 times. But when I did these floors, I really perfected the way that I lay flooring, and I probably could do it as a job. Just saying. I really love the floors, actually. They're my favorite. The cabinets were in really good shape. They just had that horrible stain, that dark espresso stain. So I just gave them a fresh coat of paint. Green was the color that I liked, and it's just the perfect green. Perfect green. I love it. Paint is this like low cost, high impact way of changing a space and making it current. So I've used paint in a bunch of different places in the house to make a big impact. In closet doors, baseboards in different spaces. A gallon of paint is like 40 bucks, and I always say that you can never underestimate the power of a gallon of paint. I did add some new hardware, but even the hardware is from Amazon. It's really inexpensive. But other than that, the cabinets are mainly how they were. We didn't have the budget to change the cabinets. We did not have the budget to change out the countertops. I don't have that kind of money. So we knew that those two things were gonna have to stay. So we had to stick with the countertops the way that they were, and then to brighten up the entire space and to make it look more like our home. We did the backsplash and built some floating shelves. I decided to bring in some tile underneath to kind of make the space feel more customized. I intentionally went with this stacked vertical look because I wanted to minimize the amount of cuts that I had to make on the wet saw. And so I had to make like very few cuts just around the outlets and things like that. Every time I tile, I say that I'm never gonna tile again because of how much I hate tiling. But it's so hard to not tile again because of how good it looks and how inexpensive it is if you pick like in-stock tile. This whole backsplash cost me $97 in material. Plus maybe 3 days of work. That wall was a lot harder. Hexagon tile is one of those things that I wasn't prepared for how difficult it was going to be. Because instead of just having 4 sides to match up, is it 6? You have 6 sides that you have to line up, and getting them all to be correct it was just a pain in the butt. But now I love it. It's one of my favorite parts of the kitchen, and it adds this really cool focal point in here. And it accentuates like this giant window that we have, which I love. It's my favorite place to be. The hexagon tile was a nightmare. The whole thing was a nightmare. Cost-wise, it was really inexpensive, but the cost to my mental health was high. It was a lot of work. So altogether, I was able to do this entire renovation in 8 weeks, and it was $1,700. Working full-time, working on the evenings after I got off of work for the day, and then working on the weekends. 1,700 bucks all in. Tile, drywall, even the brackets for the shelves were all part of that total cost. And there was a lot of things I didn't know how to do, but I think that really speaks to doing things yourself, low cost, high impact. It really makes a huge difference. And I still love this room. It's been 3 years and I still love this space. And I think it was maybe the best $1,700 I have ever spent. So before we head upstairs, there's one thing that I wanted to show you right here. We had this closet that was right here by the entryway, and I'm pretty sure we put stuff in it when we moved in, and then we didn't open it until like 3 months ago. So I transformed it into this like functional drop zone for my kids. So each kid has their own little cubby down here where they can put all their stuff. It's just a really organized space, and then I can take the baskets out and say, take your basket upstairs and go put all your stuff away. And then they have a space where they can hang up their backpacks, and then I have a water bottle filler actually on the wall so that they can get water as they're on their way out the door. They love that we have a bottle filler here, and they actually use it all the time. I'm always trying to find ways to make this home as functional as it can be, because I find that makes my life smoother. It makes my life more efficient. So I just did it because I had to get it done. And it probably would have cost me like $5,000. And I don't have $5,000 to spend on something like that. So this is our family room. I actually just completed this space pretty recently. It was just a box, just like every other room in this house, just like a basic box. Never hung out in here. And so I wanted to make this space a lot more conducive to hanging out and relaxing. One of the main things that I did was add this like trim molding on the walls, and it's actually really, really simple to do. I did do new baseboards, new door casings, just to kind of like bring it to match the downstairs. Cut it all up, put it all on here, and gave everything a fresh coat of paint, and it just looks a lot nicer than what the builder put in. It's like really chill and cool. My kids think it's awesome, and it's super comfortable. I wanted to do something to that space to make it just look a little bit more elevated. And it transformed this basic, boring box into this very fun and relaxing place to watch TV, hang out with the kids, and just like relax. It was $120 for the trim molding pieces, and then all the baseboards and stuff was $60. I already had a gallon of paint that I needed, so excluding the furniture, this room was done for less than 200 bucks. It took me 4 days to get it done, and it looks really great. So this is the kids' bathroom, and it was just a standard basic bathroom, and I wanted something that was gonna be really fun and exciting for the kids. They kind of all agreed on the final colors, and then I executed the design. So there's a little pink, there's a little blue, there's some fun zebras, and it's just like a fun, exciting place. I also did all new door casings. I added this paneling around the perimeter here. I did a tile backsplash. I did 2 separate mirrors, and then I found this vanity on Craigslist actually. And then I redid all the tile flooring, and then I put some wallpaper on the walls just to make it fun and bright. It just has totally transformed that entire space. We love it. On the other side of this wall is the laundry room, which I also renovated to make more functional for our family. It looks completely different than it used to before. There was no sink, and I really wanted a sink. My kids make giant messes, so being able to soak things in a sink was really important to have. And because the kids' bathroom is right on the other side of this wall here, I was able to just tap into the plumbing that was there. Now there's a sink. And then I got a stacked washer and dryer unit, and that freed up this counter space here. Butcher block was pretty inexpensive, and I was able to install that and use that as countertop, and then beadboard instead of actual tile backsplash. And then we have like a whole folding area over there, which is really functional. I wanted to do something that was like avocado green, harvest gold, Brady Bunch, 1970s, those kinds of vibes. I think it looks great, and all this stuff is pretty cheap. So this is my daughter's room, and whenever it comes to designing a room for my kids, I really want the room to be inspiring for them. I want it to match their style, things that they're interested in. In this room specifically, I really wanted my daughter to feel empowered, creative. She's a very creative person, so I wanted her to feel like this is her space. I want her to know that she can be anything and do anything, and I want her room to be reflective of the way that she feels about herself. I think the space you live in can kind of dictate your outlook on life. So everything from the artwork to the colors that I picked in that room was all specifically picked to not only match her personality and her style, but to be something that inspires her, that made her feel empowered to be all the different things that she really can be. I want her to feel like she can do anything. So I wanted to go with pink, but like more accented, more mellow, more relaxed. I installed new baseboards. I painted them the fun pink color to match the accent wall. On her wall where her bed is, I installed like a faux board and batten kind of a treatment, and then I painted that entire thing. And then I did this really cool chalkboard thing. She's very artistic. This is like $20 for a little quart of chalk paint, and then I just painted the shape of a house, and then I trimmed it out with this 1x3 pine. I wanted them to not be encouraged to carry the chalk outside of the chalkboard, and it works. I always have a pretty tight budget. There's a lot of spaces that I want to do. There's still parts of this house that I haven't done yet, and my kids are young, and so as they grow older, their tastes are going to change, and so keeping things simple, keeping the costs low to start, in a way that their styles can evolve without like making big changes, mean that when it is time to change something, or when they do want to change something, it doesn't feel like a waste of time or a waste of money. I can easily update this entire space in a weekend, and that's one of my favorite parts of learning how to do all these things, is being able to make spaces that my kids love and that my family loves. And at the end of the day, if I spent $200 in this room and then 3 years go by and I want to change it, or she wants me to change it, spending another $200 or $300 is not that big of a deal, and I can make that happen for her. So I like doing it. My youngest son, Samson, has the smallest room in the house. He also has like the biggest personality. So I wanted to give him a room that was really fun to look at, like visually fun for him to be in. And so my wife is very artistic, great with her freehand. And so she freehanded the mural on the wall. And then I came in and I painted it. And then I pulled one of the colors out of there and I pulled that into the baseboards or the doors. And then I had these IKEA cabinets that we have had for 10 years now. And they've been in every single kid's room, and they ended up in his room. I painted those with clearance cabinet paint that I found at Home Depot for like $6. So I'm always trying to keep costs as low as possible. So if I see a paint color that I like on clearance, I'm gonna grab it. My other son, Jonah, is 10 years old, and I said, what colors do you want for your room? Like, what colors do you like? And he said blue was his main color that he wanted. And I said, okay, let's pick an accent color. And he landed on yellow, and the two look great. And then that mustard color is inside his closet. So when you open his closet doors, you're hit with this really bright, fun mustard yellow. And it's just like one of those really custom parts of this house that people are probably gonna hate, when they move in here, but I just love it and I don't care about the next person who lives here. I really don't. In my room, I still wanted there to be a focal point in the room for us, and so I ended up painting this arch, and we love it. It's really calming and it has like mid-century modern vibes, and I couldn't decide what headboard I wanted, so I just painted one. And it looks like a nice, comfortable sunset. I needed something that was gonna anchor the room and look nice, but not break the bank. So I spent $13 on 1 quart of paint to bring in warmth and make it look more like us. Paint is just an easy way to update a space. This home is so special to me because it has quite literally changed my entire life. And now making this home special to us and showing other people how they can do the same thing at their homes as well, that's defined me completely. I have loved transforming this home. And I don't know if I'll ever be done doing it, really. I think I'll always have a project to do around here. There's this line from Father of the Bride. I want to get it tattooed on me. This house is warm in the winter, it's cool in the summer, and it looks spectacular with Christmas lights. And that totally captures this house. And I would go back and I would do it again and again and again because of how much of an impact it's made.
Six months, you're stuck inside here in Minnesota. So you better like where you're living. Yeah. Hi, my name is Kate, and this is my handmade home in Northfield, Minnesota. My husband's name is Mike, and I am a mom of 2 little girls. I got into DIY design pretty much when we moved into this house. I had been looking for 2 years for a house on a lake, and I looked in the house and I was like, this is it. It was old, it was smelly, but everything that I saw looked cosmetic and things that I could easily fix. So we just kind of DIY'd our way through the house. So this is the entryway. I wanted a big piece of artwork for this wall, but I didn't quite know exactly what I wanted until we took a door out from one of the rooms on the other side of the house. We also cut down trees in the backyard for a septic system. So I had Mike cut these wood rounds for me and I put them on the door. And here is a big piece of artwork for the entryway, natural and free. I used to work as a waitress and somebody was like, you need to go on Instagram. So I started to do it and people started following me and it just kind of snowballed from there. Here is the living room. This is the first thing that we did when we moved into the house. It was like a red brick and so I painted it white. And then it really set the tone for creating all the spaces that are adjacent to it. My style is kind of a mix of a lot of different styles. I like modern design, but I also like vintage. A lot of people say that I have a lot of masculine touches to my spaces. Like literally every room that you can walk into, I have made something in. We wanted to get an art TV and it was a little expensive. And I said, oh, well, we'll just make a frame and I can buy a tapestry and cover it up when it's not in use. So if we want to watch TV, we just pull down and it's on magnets, and then I can put it back up too. I love bringing outdoor elements inside, and something that you'll see scattered throughout my whole house are like just bowls of moss or dried hydrangeas or dried flowers, things like that. So here is the other side of the double-sided fireplace. This one goes into the dining room. This is another thing that Mike made me recently, a frame just to hang above the mantle, but I wanted it where I could easily interchange artwork on it. And this is a old piano reel. And then I have all of these books displayed here. I like to put the spines back because I like the look of it. People ask me all the time why I display the books this way. I think it's pretty. And if I need to go search for a book, I will go and literally search for that book. I love walking into a space, not looking at it to demolish it, but finding pieces in the space that can be enhanced to make it beautiful again. When we moved in, there was a stained glass window above the sink. All the cabinetry is existing cabinetry. The footprint is exactly the same as it was when we moved into the house. I had a vision of one big shelf in the space with lighting. It's not supposed to be functional, it's supposed to be pretty because we have other functional things in here. And then I found these rods from Amazon for like $10, and they came with the hooks. But I wanted to add a little leather detail. So I had these strips of leather in the house that I just cut up and hole punched and stuck the hooks through, and it adds, warmth to the space. And then this is a shelf I had in my daughter's room, and we just recently redid her room, and I didn't want to waste the shelves. I don't like to throw things away, and so I added some leather straps to it, and now it's a tray for the kitchen. Free. We will only tackle one room at a time. I never have a list of things that I'm gonna do. I just kind of spur of the moment, create. This room had the stained glass window that went into the kitchen. And then there was a window right here that looked into the main bedroom. So we took out the window, we just cut a door frame out, and then we put the wood paneling up on this wall, and Mike built these built-in. And I wanted a nice, cozy reading space, having mommy time in here. So I love a moody room. I think that adding a dark space to your home gives the room depth and feeling, and I love it. All right, now this is the main bedroom. We decided to put up some wood paneling as a headboard. There are 8-foot pieces of pine boards that I nailed into the wall and then stained, and it was super inexpensive. And then we added an acrylic frame to give it a little modern flair. We also made these nightstands, and I added a little leather element to them as well. I think of design as art. I'm constantly creating different elements to a space. This piece I found, I think I bought it for $40, and it was like a light oak color, and I wanted to change it up. And so I painted it. I think I did one coat of a matte black paint on it, and then just sanded it in random spots. I wanted it to feel really old as the piece was, but give it kind of that modern edge to it. And so now we have this new display cabinet for $40. This is probably one of my favorite rooms in the house. It's literally walls of windows for you to look at nature. And I mean, I get to look out at the lake and see people doing all the fun stuff that they do. Snowmobile, ice fishing, snowshoe. Just the other day, we had a coyote sitting in the backyard. This room used to be a really, really light wood paneling. It wasn't necessarily my style. So then I was like, okay, I'm gonna grab a little bit darker stain, an espresso stain, grab a paintbrush, and I started painting it on, but I love how it turned out. I mean, it pretty much looks black, but there's a sheen to it, and you can still see the knots in the wood. This is the COVID basement. When we first went into lockdown, I was like, okay, well, we have time. I wanted this wall to be a huge focal point for the room. So Mike built me these huge built-ins, and he did a phenomenal job with it. Tons of storage on the bottom. And then I made these leather pulls for all of the doors. And there are some that I made for the bar area, so it all coincides. I have 2 small kids, and they are only allowed to have their toys in designated spots for them to be them and to be creative. So I decided to turn a closet into a secret hideout kids room and just made a little kitchenette for the kids to play with. And then we found some LED string lights, and Mike and I drilled holes, and then we stapled them in very carefully, but it looks like a night sky, which is what I wanted for the kids to be able to play with in here. Dun, 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 dun. This is the creepy room. We had this paneling up here, and we left the basement how it was for years. And then one day I said, hey, Mike, can we rip the paneling down? And there was this cutout in the drywall. And I was like, oh, that's weird. So I was like, there has to be something behind it. Let's take it out. So we unscrewed the drywall and there was a sheet of plastic here. And so we cut into the plastic and we peeked in and there was a room back there. And it was so creepy. It had this tin red ceiling that was rusted and water had gotten into it. And so it had like dripped rust on the walls and it looked like blood was coming down. It was so creepy. So we're like, what did they use this for? And then I found a bobby pin. Whose bobby pin is this? Like, was somebody trying to get loose? What was this room? What happened? And so I didn't pick up the bobby pin for months while I was doing the room. I would find bobby pins randomly from then on. I went to work on some dressers that I had gotten and I was refinishing it and I opened the drawer and there was a bobby pin. Where is the bobby pin coming from? So yeah, it's scary. And Mike technically wanted to board it back up. And I said, no, you can't board up space in your house. We have to do something with it. So I was like, wine cellar. So that is what we did. We made a wine cellar. Come on in. The first thing that we did, I painted all the walls and then we put new tin up on the ceiling. And Mike ran the electrical to go into 2 different sconces that I wanted to flank all the display of the wine. I was like, I am going to buy wine now that can actually go in a wine cellar and that can age. How much of this do you think is that wine? I have maybe like 6 bottles. I want people to feel comfortable and relaxed when they're in my home. I like it to be unique and one of a kind, and I think it provides more meaning. I don't have an aha vision of a space. It's layering different elements one at a time until it all feels right. And I'm always changing things around and things are moving into different spots. And my husband is like, it wouldn't be a day if you didn't have me move something.
Hi, I'm Kate.
And I'm Bill, and this is our handmade home
On Long Island, New York. My family goes back about 6 generations here, and this guy's from the Midwest and got dragged here to be with me.
and all 87 of her family members.
Yeah.
We balance each other quite well in our strengths. You know, I'm the one who's sitting there looking up kind of standard distances between countertops and islands and making sure everything's like kind of all balanced and where it's supposed to be. And she's the one who, you know, she's like, I have to have this countertop. This is the countertop I have to have, picking out basically and designing all of the kind of aesthetic of the place.
I'm really very unreasonable, and he's very reasonable. That's what makes us work. I started selling vintage after I started hoarding way too much vintage, and this guy was like, you gotta get some of this crap out of here. So I started selling online through Etsy, and then I started my own website, and that's what I sell through now. It's katepiercevintage.com. And basically I go to thrift stores, estate sales, and I pick up everything I like, and I keep what I really like, and I sell what just doesn't work in our house. We bought our house almost 3 years ago, and we loved the old charm of it. It was built in 1910, but it was an absolute disaster. Every little inch needed love. I don't even think it had been painted in 30 years. So we love that about it too, that we're project people. He does all the building, I do the designing, and it's just been a labor of love.
It had great bones. The house had phenomenal bones, and we completely redesigned the space. Moved everything from the water lines, the drains, all of the, we put in new windows.
When we moved in, the kitchen had a totally different layout.
It was a long hallway basically from this door right here. So it was a much smaller space, much more kind of condensed space.
Very cramped, and it wasn't making the best use of the space.
So we really ripped it all the way down to the studs, took everything out, completely redid all of the electrical, all the plumbing, everything, and then built it back up from there.
We used a lot of vintage elements in the kitchen, like the reclaimed wood came from an 1800s barn in Connecticut.
We actually used IKEA cabinetry for 2 parts of it, and then the other part is just kind of framed out of 2x4, and then we just kind of covered it with the reclaimed wood. to give it a more kind of rustic look.
So I'm a really impractical person. I have visions for spaces, and those visions are the priority. So I wanted open shelving with loads of plants on them because everyone needs plants to cook, right? I used to have glassware, plates, everything on here, and it just looked so cluttered. So slowly anything that was actually a functional part of a kitchen just started coming off of the open shelves until there were just plants. I really have a weakness for vintage glassware, and these are my favorite glasses in the world. I've only come across 3 of them in all of my years of thrifting, but they're peekaboo glasses. This guy, I saw him online at an estate sale, and I saw that he was hidden, just peeking through. I call him Ned now, but I found him and he was this original acrylic portrait in really great shape, and they charged me $10, and now he's one of my favorite pieces in our home.
The funny part is that on Halloween, Ned got an eye patch. On Christmas, Ned had a Christmas hat. So Ned gets dressed up depending on the holiday.
He hangs with us. He parties hard. I was at an estate sale recently, and it was the home of an artist who had passed away, and all of his life's work was in the home. So there were hundreds of portraits, and I was shocked when I got to the sale and found that none of the dealers were there for the portraits. So I had the option of hundreds to choose from, and it was a little overwhelming, and I picked up 18 of them, thinking that that was a lot of portraits to bring home, and I thought, oh, I'll sell half of these, keep a couple. And then I added them to the wall, and then I realized that I didn't have enough. So now I'll be trying to find some more portraits to add. I really envisioned them covering almost every inch of the white wall. The library space is definitely my favorite, and I love just escaping in there in the very small amount of free time that I get with having 2 young children, and I love being surrounded by the books and the plants, and I think it just has enough color to be very cheerful and happy, and muted enough where you can feel relaxed in that space. So it's probably the room I'm most proud of designing. I kind of nailed exactly what I was going for, I think. I envisioned the shelves having the book collection that I've been collecting for 4 or 5 years now, but also being kind of a live plant wall. But there were some logistical issues, such as this half of the bookshelves not getting any natural light. So we found this product from Mod Sprout, and their grow frames, there's a grow light inside, so that I could bring the greenery onto this side of the shelves. I think my middle finger is my favorite. I found this at a estate sale that was all mid-century stuff, and it was in his basement, like man cave bar, and I just spray painted it gold, and it's my favorite. It's very welcoming. Some of my plants are actually even thrifted. This enormous euphorbia cactus thing I found at an estate sale, and they're super expensive when you get them from a nursery, but I got it for $100, and I realized it was $100 because everyone else at that sale was like, how the hell would I get this huge thing home? So we got it home by putting the thing on the back of my dad's pickup truck and me essentially hugging it, going 40 miles an hour down the road. Really, I mean, I almost gave my life for this thing, but.
And then I find out about it when you roll up in the driveway and say, I need you to come get a cactus out of the truck. I'm like, all right.
That's normal for us.
It's totally normal for us. Totally normal. She's just staring at me. She likes to eat everything.
Yeah.
Literally everything.
She's eaten couches and shoes and toys and.
There have been a few things that I've had to like hide after the dog has eaten it because I'm like, oh, that's not good. Like something you've just brought home, some type of vintage thing you've brought home.
See, those are the things that you just don't ever tell me. Now I'm gonna be thinking, what did you eat, Ripley? What did you eat? So we have no closets on our ground floor, so we need this space to be a highly functional space, yet play into the whole design. So straight on into the kitchen where you see my orange bar stools. I picked up that same color and put it on the wall here so it would carry your eye into both spaces.
Watch your head.
So this is probably my longest running collection. They're all antique or vintage. Some people find this wall super creepy. They're like, oh, so you just have a bunch of dead people on your wall. 'Cause a lot of them are really old, but I don't see it that way. I just love the character of all of the different silhouettes, and a lot of them have the writing on the back saying what year they were made and the person's name, and I just love that sort of thing. You know, it's a great conversation piece, and everyone that walks in the house is always immediately drawn to this wall.
Your dead people wall.
Our dead people wall.
I think we've been here for maybe a year at most, and I came home and Katie was ripping tiles off the wall in the bathroom, doing a very bad job and ripping up all the drywall underneath. So needless to say, I had to take over after that, so that's how we got our first project started.
Yeah, so I really wanted to have a vintage dresser in this space.
From a DIY perspective, this is a perfect example of kind of implementing her vision. Obviously with the drawers, they go back and they take up the entire space, and we wanted to make sure that we could be able to put the sinks with the drains and all of the water supply in, but make the drawers still functional. So that was, you know, we had to do basically surgery on these drawers, and you know, some of them have sections in the middle that we can't put anything, that we just built kind of squares in or cutouts so that they go around the pipes and they're still usable.
I have so much fun with kids' spaces because you can just go wild with color and whimsy. This is our daughter Eva's room. She just turned 7, and this house bed is the only piece that came from our old house. She was 2 when we bought it, and she still loves it just as much to this day. This Russian nesting doll collection, this is how I get her to come to estate sales with me, by telling her, hey, we'll find some Russian nesting dolls. And this Art Deco fireplace I found in a really disgusting basement, and it was a project to get it all cleaned up and painted. So we're in our younger daughter Josie's room. She's about 2.5 years old.
This bed is a perfect example of Kate just falling in love with something and needing to have it in the space, because it is old enough that it's not a standard size, so we can't get a standard mattress. It's, what is it called, like 3/4?
Yeah, it's a 3/4 mattress. You have to have them special made, but I found that an RV mattress actually fits on the bed, so she has an RV mattress. I'm not the biggest fan of spaces that are just put together exactly right, or pieces that don't have the little chip or patina. I think that just adds character, and we tried to give that sort of character to every space we create.